Hi, I'm Matthew Ashton and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Matthew Ashton, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be on your show.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, you are, of course, the Vice President of Design at LEGO, which is very exciting. But can you tell me, what did you aspire to be when you were growing up?
Well, if I go right the way back to when I was a little kid, I remember playing with my Lego on the floor with my brother, and I just watched Big, the movie where Tom Hanks magically grows up from a kid to be an adult toy designer. And I was obsessed with Pinocchio at the time as well, which of course is about a toy coming to life. So there was a lot of things in my life that were pointing me in the direction to want to be a toy designer, and that realization happened to me while I was actually playing with my Lego with my brother. Of course, I was probably 8 or 9 at that time, and as you grow up, you think that's not a real job. You don't meet any other toy designer. So I just knew I wanted to do something creative. Always focused on art and design. Ultimately went to university to study fashion design and business studies, and then managed to accidentally land my dream job at LEGO in the process.
You did indeed. So you're working in fashion design, as you say, and doing some really exciting stuff. How did the LEGO Talent Scouts find you?
Yeah, so after we graduated, so I went to university in Brighton, and when we graduated from university, we had a fashion show, a graduate fashion week in London. So that's where you do like a catwalk runway show of your collection. And then shortly after that, there's an exhibition in Islington called New Designers in the business centre there. And that's where a lot of students from all different art and design disciplines exhibit their work. So that can be industrial design, fashion design, photography, illustration, product design, all of those kind of things. And at that exhibition, there happened to be some LEGO headhunters. In the run-up to the show, I was a little bit indecisive about what I wanted to display. Most fashion designers either hang up one garment and have their portfolio at hand, or a mood board. And because I couldn't decide which garment, I then made a miniature version of my entire catwalk collection on Barbie dolls and had those on a Perspex case. Luckily, this may sound a little bit odd, my exhibit was right next to the exit. So pretty much everybody going in and out of this exhibition had to walk past my stand, and that's where some LEGO headhunters spotted what I'd done with the Barbie dolls. They also dove into my portfolio and saw that I'd done a lot of children's wear and stuff. So were really interested in what I did. I wasn't on the stand at that point, so they left their business card and then popped back later, and we got chatting. And then I ultimately landed myself a little bit of freelance work to begin with before I was offered a full-time job in Denmark. So yes.
That's fantastic. And so can you talk us through the process of designing a LEGO set? How do you go about it? Does it start just with a pile of LEGO and you just see what you can create?
In some ways it's like that. In other ways it's a bit more complicated. So like with any design process, you have to do a sort of element of research to begin with to figure out, right, where's there a gap in the market? Where should we be trying to create a new experience for kids that we don't currently have in the portfolio? So there's a bit of strategic work that goes into it beforehand. And then we work on sort of fleshing out some initial ideas. They can either be drawn, or we do sketch models with LEGO. That's where you build the initial version of the model out of LEGO bricks. We've got a massive big basement within the design headquarters where we are, which is basically a library of all of the bricks and all of the different colors. So we go down there and it's kind of like a pick and mix where you're choosing your sweets from a candy store or something. So you go and pick all the bricks from there, and then we do sketch models. We also do a lot of testing with kids throughout the process. So depending on the type of product we're creating, if it's a very sort of story-driven property, we've got a product line called Ninjago, which is all about ninjas going on adventures and things like that. So we very often test sort of visual illustrations of what we're planning to do, put it in front of the kids, and then we find if we kind of draw these images like they're a snapshot in a movie, and we ask the kids, what do you think is going to happen next? What adventures are going to go on from that? And if the kids can just talk and talk and talk for hours, you know you're on to something really good. If they can only say a couple of sentences about what you've created, then you know it's back to the drawing board. So we go through that process, reiterate everything to sort of get the models on spec, both from a costing point of view, but sort of a play point of view, and to make sure that we run it through our building instructions people as well, to make sure that they're checking that it's the right building age for the product and stuff before we ultimately lock the bill of material, it's called. That's when the final button is pushed, like this is the exact product, and then we do all the packaging and campaign material and everything around it from then on. So yes, quite a long process, but it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So once you've worked out the exact construction of it, does someone else have to count how many bricks are in it and then work out how to deconstruct it and then put it back together for other people?
Yeah, so basically the designer and we have sort of coaches that help us through the process to make sure that we're building things in the most logical steps as we're going through it. So it's not like we get to the end and then hand it over and it's somebody else's problem to deal with. We try and tweak the problems that we're creating as we go through the process, but then it will ultimately be handed over to the building instructions team, and then they'll because the way you build it as a designer, you don't necessarily build it in the same order that a consumer or a child would. Then you have to start at the base and build it up, whereas you might have started at the top and built it down. So they're the ones that then devise step by step what's the most logical way to put a set together.
Now, you were executive producer on the LEGO Movie, LEGO Movie 2, LEGO Batman, all huge films. Can you tell me what kind of work you did on them?
Yeah, so I, and to be honest, I don't know what regular executive producers necessarily do. Mine was quite a specific role. So I was working with the directors and the writers and the animation team. And that was, I had some input on the sort of story and character development. And, but my main role was primarily of making sure that the look of the movie really looked really authentic to the LEGO brand, and what our toys look like, and what the whole movie would look like if we gave some adult fans and some kids unlimited bricks where they could build an entire movie out of it. We wanted it to look as authentic as possible. So me and my design team worked on the character development. So that's everything from what their faces look like to hairstyles and all the decorations on their clothing. And then we worked with the art team and the animation team to sort of define anything that was what we call toyetic. So that's anything that could ultimately be turned into a toy to sell alongside the movie. So that was primarily vehicles, and then key locations, and then the animation studio and everything did the rest of the magic to tie the whole movie together and stuff. So yeah. Do
you have a favorite scene from any of the movies that really sort of stuck out to you?
Oh, there's so many. I think I was the designer behind Unikitty, who appeared in the first LEGO movie, and there's a moment where she pops from being this positive, quirky little bundle of love and joy and positivity to then defending her friends in a furious rage. So that's probably one of my favorites. And then there's also a scene in the LEGO Batman movie where Robin discovers that both Bruce Wayne and Batman are his dads. And I think that's just a really, really cute little realization for Robin, who's been an orphan, and then he's in that very special position, not fully understanding what he's got himself into. So yes, but I think also, aside from the animated stuff, I think the live action sequences at the end of the movies where everything comes together and you have the realization that this is all being played out from a kid's imagination, and it's all about him trying to rebond with his dad and things in the first movie. I think that tied everything together in a really nice, heartwarming, lovely way. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know a lot of people wonder, were the films stop motion animation, were they CGI, or were they a combination of both?
It was CGI, but based on stop motion. So Lord and Miller, who are the directors of this movie, like most of the Lego movies, they did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and they've also just done Mitchell's versus the Machines and things. They are very specific about the kind of aesthetics that they want in a movie, and they'd seen a lot of stop motion stuff that our adult fans had created, sort of just little YouTube videos and clips that they'd made, and thought it was so charming to sort of play up the limitations of Lego rather than trying to hide the limitations. So the fact that everybody just performed in a way that a real minifigure would, with the limited articulation that they've got, that added a lot of charm and stuff to the movie. So we did our best to, if it had been stop motion, it probably would have taken like 25 years to make those movies. So we had to do it with CGI animation instead. But even with that, we applied special textures to the bricks. So they had like little nail or teeth marks in them. They had fingerprints all over them. And even when they were built together, they didn't interlock perfectly. So we made what we called jitter within the bricks, that each brick wasn't necessarily assembled on top of the other one quite perfectly. So it did make it look like you could have built it even more so. So yeah, so very, very happy that we took that route, because I feel it was the first Lego big scale animation where we've really embraced Lego bricks and Lego characters for what they truly are.
Yeah, the movies look photorealistic, and that's why I think so many people wonder if they're stop motion animation, and it really brings the whole thing to life.
Yeah, exactly. So very magical. So it's kind of like a lot of movies like Toy Story and everything for the first time. It really, having a kid have a sense that what they play with at home could come to life, I think is something that every kid dreams of. So I'm glad that we managed to do that in our own special, unique style. So.
You did indeed. And so Universal Pictures has recently signed a 5-year deal to produce Lego movies, which is very exciting. Is there a chance we might see some of their franchises, such as Jurassic World or Fast and Furious, recreated in Lego form? And also, are there any classic characters that you'd love to see brought to life as little Lego characters?
I'm not allowed to talk about anything with the Universal deal. That's all top secret. And to be honest, I'm not privy to a lot of what's going on at the moment. So that's all going through our entertainment team. So they'll be working on whatever the format of the movies is going to be. And then once it's time for us guys on this side of the fence to get involved, then we'll get pulled in and help out on that, I'm sure. So I think, for me, selfishly, personally, if I was to choose some characters that I'd like to see in Lego form, it would probably be a lot of the things that I have a lot of nostalgia for, or childhood memories about and things as well. So that could be anything. I'd love to do Golden Girls at some point, just because
that'd be amazing.
I know. So they're probably my number one, but then also a lot of the things that I played with as a kid, like She-Ra or He-Man, and all of those things. But all of that kind of stuff is very complicated because the rights to all of those things are owned by other toy companies. So that makes that a little bit tricky. So yeah.
And so, as you mentioned, you've invented characters such as Unikitty, and there's a Unikitty TV show which you also exec produced. What do you love about that character?
I think, well, when we were creating her, the original script didn't have enough female characters in, so we were trying to figure out exactly how we'd create somebody. Wildstyle was already on the cards, and we'd worked with her, and of course she's very badass and kick-ass and a bit of a feminist, and is somebody that's really kind of aspirational but not necessarily very emotional. So then we wanted to create another character that expressed every emotion possible, especially the more positive ones. And we also had a lot of discussions about maybe she should be a brick-built character rather than a minifigure, because then that can sort of express a level of creativity and things as well that you don't necessarily get with the rest of the cast. So we had a brainstorm about all different types of characters that we could create, and then we went down this path of like, what are the cutest magical animals and things in the world? And of course, kittens and unicorns came to the top, and we were like, right, should we just mush those two things together? So the production team and the director's got a few freelancers to do a few takes on Unikitty to begin with, and she was looking a bit creepy and a bit big, and because originally they were trying to make her that the rest of the characters could ride around on her, but then she was just ending up so big that she wasn't cute. So I was like, can you hand her over to me, and then within 2 weeks, me and one of our guys who's really good at graphics worked on Unikitty and then created her from that. And I think it's just, she's the kind of character that I loved as a child, that I was always attracted to the Disney princesses sidekicks like Flounder and Sebastian and Scuttle and all of those guys. So it was like a little animal friend that could add a little bit more fun and a little bit more optimism and silliness into the whole cast was what we needed with her. So yes, she's got a very special place in my heart.
And the TV show is a lot of fun, and if anyone hasn't seen it, it's actually 2D traditional animation as well, so it's a different style to the movies, but I think you'll really enjoy it. Yes,
it's awesome. So yes, so that was on Cartoon Network, so I believe you can still watch it on there, but it was a lot of fun also expanding on her and creating her brother Puppy Corn, and then a whole cast of other silly brick-built characters around her, especially Richard, who is her butler and is just a floating grumpy brick that's just going around tidying up after her the whole time. So
all the best butlers are.
Exactly. Who with a Richard myself.
So next I want to talk about the Everyone is Awesome set. When it became available to pre-order, I pre-ordered it straight away. It's available for Pride. I have it here. I keep moving the characters around and having a good play with it. Can you tell me how that first came about?
Well, I think we've kind of been, over the last few years, obviously the world has been quite a feisty, divided place in many regards on a lot of different topics. So for me personally, I was kind of reflecting on that. I know as a society, we've had a lot to sort of think about, and the LEGO group was also trying to figure out whether we should be more outspoken on certain topics and figuring out ways where we could help spread a little bit more love and understanding and empathy and helping see the good in everybody and seeing through people's differences and all of that kind of stuff. So there were some internal discussions going on around that in myself and the leadership team. And then at the same time, I coincidentally just moved desks at work and thought, I'm going to build something for myself to put on my desk. So that was just something that within a couple of days, I popped down to the basement, grabbed a load of rainbow bricks, built the first version of the set that was never originally intended to be released, and spray painted all of the parts that I didn't have in the right colors, and created that on my desk. So when the discussion around what we should be doing for the LGBTQ community came up, I actually just ran to my desk. I was like, look, I've got this example of something that I've built. I think it could be super powerful and inclusive to release a set like this. So persuaded the powers that be to let us have a shot at this, and I'm really proud that we've been able to do that as a brand. So
Absolutely, because at the moment, for anyone that doesn't know, it's currently illegal to be LGBTQ plus in 70 countries around the world, and 12 countries also have the death penalty. What does this set mean to you? I've seen loads of my friends that don't normally even mention LEGO have been buying it, and all over my timeline on Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff as well. So how do you sort of feel seeing something you created like that? I know you create a lot of stuff, but seeing this particularly out there in the world.
I think this has been particularly special as well, because I think I grew up in the 80s as a gay kid, not necessarily realizing I was gay early on, because you just think you're a little bit different to everybody else until the hormones things start kicking in, and you're like, oh, that's what that is. So yes, but I felt that there was very little representation out there at that point, and I did feel like I didn't know anybody else like me at school or anything. I felt, even though I had friends, I knew I was different and didn't really understand why. And I think if I'd seen a little bit more representation in within TV or within products and toys or all different mediums, then it would have helped me knowing that I was not the only kid like that, and there were other people like that around me. So I think being able to launch a set like this to say, as a brand, where we see you, we hear you, we want to support you, is super important. And honestly, the reception that I've had from this, of course, in some regards, yes, some people get upset that we're doing something like this, but for the people who it really means something to, I've had such lovely messages of how families have been able to sort of take a product like this and then build it together and have open conversations about understanding each other's differences. I've had colleagues that have reached out to me to say that they've got a trans nephew who wants to transition to be that colleague's niece instead, and the fact that he's been able to give them a gift and say, look, I'm here, I'll support you, and you can always talk to me about anything, has been really, really lovely. So I know it has meant a lot to so many people. So that of course means a lot to me as well.
And do you think there could be a chance we might see more LGBTQIA sets in the future?
Yes, I think that this is just obviously this is the first time that we've done anything like this, and I think it's not just LGBTQ stuff we want to tackle. I think there's a range of different topics that we're discussing about how we can either shine a light on certain issues and things at LEGO. So this is just the first step in doing something like this, and I'm sure there'll be more on the way at some point as well. So yeah. Can't talk about it though. This is the problem with my job. Everything's top secret. So.
Well, you're very welcome back at a later date to speak about the other stuff too. And I've still got a lot of shelf space. So. Okie
dokie, that's nice to hear.
I believe you've been at LEGO for about 20 years.
Yes, well, I was hired in the year 2000 on April Fool's Day. So wow. Either it was a big joke and they still haven't told me, or what.
So can you tell us some of the other sets that you've worked on over the years?
Yeah, so I originally, when I first started, obviously coming from a fashion background and having done the Barbie doll stuff, I was hired in to work in the girls department that was set up back then. And that was actually working on a product line called Clickits, which was more, it wasn't a traditional LEGO product, it was more sort of an arts and craft click together little building system that you could create jewelry and room decor and a lot of stuff like that. So that was my very first sort of product line that I worked on, which was a little bit odd because when I found out I was hired to work at LEGO on girls' things, I thought I was getting a job that was going to be much more corporate and creating experiences from that for girls. So that project ultimately closed down because that was when we were going through quite a bumpy patch at LEGO, and so there was a lot of product lines in development like Galador and Jack Stone and a lot of very odd things at that point that were sort of coming from the company. And that's where we then the new CEO came in and he's like, right, we're going to refocus. We're only going to focus on boys 5 to 9 to begin with, re-establish the core of our business. And then once we've got that organized, then we can then start expanding out to all different audiences from then on. So I moved on to what was called Play Themes at the time. And that was stuff like Aqua Raiders and Castle. I did the Castle launch from 2000 and I think it was 2007 to 2010, Pirates, and then we did Agents, Monster Fighters, and a few things like that, Alien Conquest and stuff. And then I was also in charge of the IP properties. So that was Star Wars and Indiana Jones and the first wave of Toy Story stuff. So yes, I've had my fingers in a lot of pies. So not necessarily designing all the models myself. That's where I was sort of promoted more into a leadership role. So I had my teams of design managers and designers underneath me. I'm creating all of that stuff. So yeah, so that was that before I then ultimately moved on to doing the Lego movies, amongst other things. And now I've got a new job title, which is head of design for Core, which basically means I'm in charge of City and Friends, Ninjago, Speed Champions, Technic, minifigure collectibles, Classic, Creator, and Monkey Kid at the moment. So yes, so quite a variety.
Yeah, they've got a lot keeping you busy then.
Exactly.
You're also the head judge on Channel 4's LEGO Masters. There's been 3 series of it so far. There's international editions as well. It's a lot of fun. Is that something you'd like to do more of?
I'd love to. So we're currently not on anymore in the UK, which is a real shame, because obviously we were the little trial run for LEGO Masters to sort of get the format up and running. And honestly, it was an absolute joy to be part of that, even though it was very sort of emotional at the same time, having to eliminate people and send people home when everybody was so talented and amazing. So I really enjoyed that, and I'm so happy and proud that it's now gone on to sort of spawn all the international versions of the show. So I think we've got around 10 countries in production at the moment. So yes, so it's turned into quite the global phenomenon now. And yes, so Australia picked it up after the UK and did an amazing job. And that's the obviously much bigger, higher budget format. And then that's what's being rolled out elsewhere. So would love it to be back in the UK at some point, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. So.
And so you've worked on loads of amazing and exciting projects over the last 21 years. Which are you the most proud of?
I think the Lego Movie 1 is probably the one where I'm like, it was such hard work, just because it's the first time that we'd ever done anything like that. And then to come out with something that got such a really good reception is something I'm incredibly proud of. But at the same time, there's also teeny tiny little projects that I've done that I'm kind of equally as proud of in a way that I was part of launching minifigure collectibles way back in the day. And that's where you just get the characters in blind bags, and you would not believe the discussions and the internal battles and the persuasion that had to go into us being allowed to release characters just by themselves, not part of the building set, and then finding out a way to then produce those, because they had to be produced in a different way to our internal setup, and they need to be packed specially because they were blind bagged, and it was for something that looks like it's the most simple product line we've probably ever launched. It was a lot more complicated behind the scenes. So yes, I'm really proud of that one too.
So here's a question I ask every guest on the Sarah O'Connell show. Can you tell me a fun fact about you, something we may not know, a hobby, a party trick, something like that?
Oh my goodness. Right. And some people probably know this about me. As a kid, I was obsessed with My Little Ponies and wasn't allowed one as a child because they were for girls. Now I have over 2,000 of them lurking in my basement. So this year is the year I'm finally gonna sort of assemble my pony room and have them all on display. So yes, not really a party trick, but a little unknown fact about me, I guess. So yeah.
It's very 2,000 is a lot. It's very impressive. And are they all different ones, or do you have multiples of the same, or from different packaging and stuff like that?
They're all mainly different. I've kind of lost track of a few because they're all in storage at the moment. So yes, most of them I've pretty much got all of the original 80s ponies, and then the last wave from the Friendship is Magic range and stuff as well. So there are probably a few duplicates here and there, but no, most of them are unique.
I'm kind of the same way with movies, and I've bought so many over the years that I kind of sometimes lose track of if I've got one or not. And there's some films that I own 2 or 3 times because I've forgotten I've already purchased it.
That's the problem, having a big collection like that. And it's kind of, sometimes I'm like, if I've had a few drinks or something, and then I'm like coming late, oh, I'll just have a look on eBay, and then I'll order something and forget I've ordered it, and then it'll arrive and I'll be like, where did this come from? So yes.
You must have seen some wildly impressive Lego constructions over the years. I certainly have. Lego Windsor and places like that. Which ones really stick out to you?
I think I've been to a few Lego conventions where it's kind of been a joint project between multiple fans. So there's been some instances where they've kind of built like a space lunar base where each fan has sort of built their version of a sort of space module or space station or lunar base. And then when they brought it to the convention, then they each connect them all up and have like a monorail running through it. And that's so lovely just to see like the teamwork coming together to create all of something that everybody's take on the same topic is really different. And I think that's also what spawned a lot of the challenges within LEGO Masters and things as well, where they've had to like build a super impressive city together, where each contestant wheels in their building and thing. I think is really great. So I've seen some amazing stuff in my time. So can't think of one particular thing, but there's always just, you can be impressed by something so big that looks like it's taken so much work, but then at the same time, you can just find the tiniest detail where somebody's built something in a way that you've never thought about putting the pieces together in that way. So you can be surprised at both ends of the spectrum.
Can you tell us anything about what you're working on next? Has anything been announced, any products coming out soon that we should be looking out for?
Probably not. The problem I have is because I'm working on 2023 stuff at the moment, and often I can't remember what's launched and what hasn't because we're so far in advance. I'm like, is that out already or not? So I need to really watch what I'm saying when people ask me these questions, because I might blab something that I'm not allowed to talk about at all. So no, so I think there's some very exciting things going on in our ongoing franchises and stuff. We're trying to bring in some new play components and stuff into things like Lego City, and really make sure that we're innovating lines like that. And then there's some entirely new themes on the way, which I'm not allowed to talk about. So I think I'll stop there before I say something that I shouldn't.
Final question, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
I'd just like to say thank you for everybody who's supported LEGO, and has especially supported the Everyone is Awesome set. So that means so much to me. So stay awesome, keep building, be happy, and spread a little love and LEGO love around the world if you can. So that's it for me.
Well, Matthew Ashton, thank you so much for your time today and for being awesome yourself. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, that's been really nice. So thank you. This has been a really lovely chat. So lovely to meet you. And yeah, stay in touch.
Absolutely. And you're welcome back anytime. And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, leave lots of lovely comments. I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Bye.